Ever woken up in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat, and thought, why do people hate the French? No? Just me then? Well, here we are, about to dive into this rather peculiar rabbit hole. This, my friends, is the unsettling question that has been keeping some of us awake at night. Now, let's be clear, hate is a rather strong word. Perhaps dislike, or mildly irritated by, might be more fitting. But whatever the terminology, there seems to be a certain, how shall we put it, je ne sais quoi about the French that rubs some people the wrong way. It's not the baguettes, surely. Who doesn't love a good crusty loaf? It's not the wine either. I mean, come on, who can resist a good Bordeaux? And let's not even start on the cheese. The French have over 1,000 types of cheese. Surely a nation that has mastered the art of cheese-making can't be all that bad, right? But alas, it appears that the French, despite their culinary prowess, are often the subject of scorn. The reasons? Well, they range from the absurd to the downright ridiculous. Some say it's their perceived arrogance, others claim it's their refusal to speak English. And then there are those who simply can't stand the sound of the French accent. And let's not forget the historical rivalries. Ah yes, the English and the French have been at each other's throats for centuries. The 100 Years' War, anyone? Nothing like a good old-fashioned feud to keep the animosity alive. So, there you have it. A brief and rather absurdist overview of why some people have an issue with our friends across the channel. But remember, these are just stereotypes and misconceptions. The French, like any other nation, are a diverse and complex people. And let's face it, a world without the French would be a rather dull place, wouldn't it? So if you're not yet questioning your life choices that led you to this video, stick around. Things are about to get even weirder. Let's travel back in time. Oh wait, we're not allowed to say that. So buckle up and pretend we're time traveling. Our first stop is the 100 Years' War. Quite an ambitious name, don't you think? I mean, who starts a war thinking, let's make this last a century, shall we? Anyway, it was in the 14th century that England and France decided to have a bit of a tiff. And by tiff, I mean a full-blown century-long war. Now, if you're thinking that holding a grudge over a war that happened over 600 years ago is a bit much, well, you're probably right. But hey, who are we to judge? Next up, we have the French Revolution, a period of political and social upheaval in France, which, let's face it, didn't exactly paint the French in the best light. Heads were rolling, quite literally, and the world looked on in horror. It's like that time your cousin had a meltdown at the family reunion, but on a national scale. Again, you might think it's a tad unreasonable to hold this against the French today, but apparently some people have long memories. Oh, and let's not forget Napoleon Bonaparte. You know, the short guy with a big hat who tried to conquer Europe? He was a bit of a troublemaker. But in all fairness, he did give us some good things, like the Napoleonic Code and the basis for the metric system. However, his thirst for power and his military campaigns didn't exactly endear him to the rest of the world. But surely we can't still be holding a grudge over that. And then there's World War II. Ah, the pièce de résistance of historical grudges. When France fell to the Nazis and set up the Vichy government, it didn't exactly win them any popularity contests. And yes, it was a dark time in French history. But to hold it against them today, well, that seems a bit harsh, doesn't it? In between all these major events, there were countless smaller conflicts, disagreements, and general Frenchness that didn't help their cause. But remember, this is all in the past. And as we all know, the past is a different country. They do things differently there, so if you're one of those people who still harbours a grudge against the French for something that happened centuries ago, maybe it's time to let it go. After all, holding on to a grudge is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die, or in this case, expecting an entire nation to care. And that, my friends, is how you hold a grudge for centuries. Take notes. Ever tried learning French? It's like trying to eat soup with a fork. I mean, come on, who decided to make a language where half the letters in a word are silent? It's like they're playing hide and seek with the alphabet. When it comes to French, it's not just about the words you say, it's about how you say them. It's a language that's more about nose and throat than tongue and teeth. And don't even get me started on the gender of objects. Apparently chairs are feminine and books are masculine. I mean, who looked at a book and thought, oh yes, very manly, that one? Then there are the phrases, c'est la vie, that well-known French phrase that literally means that's life. But it's not just a statement of fact. It's a philosophical musing, a shrug of the shoulders, an acceptance of the whims of fate. It's like they've squeezed an entire therapy session into 3 little words. And then there's l'exception qui confirme la règle, which translates to the exception that proves the rule. Now, I don't know about you, but where I come from, exceptions generally disprove rules, not confirm them. But hey, that's French logic for you. And here's a fun one, chercher des poux dans la tête. Literally translated, it means to look for lice in someone's head. But metaphorically, it's used to describe someone who's nitpicking. I mean, could they get any more graphic? In the world of French, you don't have a coffee, you take a coffee. You don't wake up, you open yourself. And my personal favourite, you don't get angry, you have the cockroach. Now, I don't know about you, but I'd be pretty upset if I had a cockroach too. In conclusion, French is the language equivalent of trying to assemble IKEA furniture with no instructions. Moving on. Now, who doesn't love a good stereotype? They're like the seasoning on the salad of ignorance. Every culture has its clichés, and the French are no exception. Ah, the French, the beret-wearing, baguette-carrying, philosophizing folks, with a glass of wine in one hand and a wheel of cheese in the other. It's like a scene from a badly written sitcom, isn't it? But let's dive into these stereotypes and see what they're all about. First up, the French and their wine. We all know the French are practically born with a glass of Bordeaux in hand, right? It's almost as if the French medical system includes a wine prescription along with the standard vaccines. But in reality, it's not that the French are perpetually tipsy, but rather they have a deep appreciation for the art of viticulture. Wine is a part of their history, their culture, their identity. It's not just about getting sloshed on a Saturday night. It's about tradition, heritage, and a shared sense of belonging. Next, we have the cheese. Ah, the smellier the better, isn't it? The French are practically rolling in it, with over 1,000 different varieties. You'd think they'd have run out of animals to milk by now. But again, it's not about the cheese itself, but what it represents. French cheese is a symbol of regional diversity, of the respect for the land and its produce, and let's not forget, a testament to the French's adventurous palate. Now let's address the strike-loving French. The French, they'll strike at the drop of a hat, won't they? Forgot to put cheese in the office vending machine? Strike. Train running 2 minutes late? Strike. It's almost as if the French have a national pastime of downing tools and hitting the streets. But in reality, these strikes are less about the French being work-shy and more about their commitment to social justice and their willingness to fight for their rights. It's a reflection of a society that values the collective over the individual, that stands up for the underdog, that isn't afraid to say, "Non, this is not acceptable." And finally, the baguette. The French and their baguettes, inseparable like Romeo and Juliet, like Sherlock and Watson, like cheese and wine. The baguette is to the French what the smartphone is to the rest of us, an essential daily companion. But it's not just a piece of bread. It's a symbol of French culinary tradition, of simplicity and perfection, of the pleasure of life's simple things. So remember, folks, if you see a French person, make sure to ask them about their latest strike and baguette recipe. They'll love that. As we delve deeper into this rabbit hole, let's talk about the infamous French attitude. Because who doesn't love being scorned by a Parisian waiter? Ah, the French attitude. The je ne sais quoi that seems to exude an air of, I'm better than you and I know it. But let's not be too hasty, my dear Watson. This so-called arrogance is often a matter of perception, a clash of cultures, if you will. See, the French have a different way of doing things. It's not about being superior, but more about a certain, shall we say, savoir-faire. Yes, that's it, savoir-faire, a certain knowledge of how to act in any given situation. It's like they've all graduated from the University of Life with first-class honours. Now let's talk about French etiquette. It's like a dance. A dance where everyone knows the steps except you. You, my friend, are doing the Macarena while they're all waltzing in perfect harmony. The French have rules for everything, from how to eat cheese, always from the rind to the centre, to when to say bonjour, only once in a day to the same person, mind you. And then there's the French love for debate. Oh, they love a good argument. Not in an aggressive fist-pounding way, but more in, let's have a philosophical discussion about the meaning of life over a glass of wine kind of way. It's not about winning or losing, but about the joy of the debate itself. But wait, there's more. The French also have a deep appreciation for the finer things in life. They savor their food. They savor their wine. They savor their art. It's all about quality over quantity. So you see, what might come across as arrogance is often just a deep-rooted cultural appreciation for the art of living. It's about knowing the rules, appreciating the finer things, and standing up for one's beliefs. Now, let's not forget about that Parisian waiter. Yes, the one who's looking at you like you've just asked for ketchup with your escargot. Here's a little secret. It's not about you. In France, being a waiter is a profession, not a part-time job. They take pride in their work, and they expect their customers to respect the art of dining. So, next time you're in France, remember, it's not about fitting in, but about appreciating the dance. Know the steps, savor the experience, and maybe, just maybe, that Parisian waiter will crack a smile. So if you're planning to visit France, remember to pack your thickest skin and a pocket dictionary. You're going to need it. Finally, let's discuss the French reputation, or as I like to call it, why everyone thinks the French are like the mean girls from high school. Now, let's take a moment to think about how the French are portrayed in the media. Ah yes, the beret-wearing, baguette-toting, wine-sipping sophisticate with an air of aloofness. And let's not forget the classic phrase, "Oh la la," said in a tone that screams, "I'm better than you." You know, just your average Tuesday in France, right? Now, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. Most French people don't spend their days sipping wine in berets while dismissing everyone else with a wave of their baguette. Shocking, I know. But let's get serious for a moment. The media plays a pivotal role in shaping our perceptions of different cultures and nations, and France is no exception. Unfortunately, this often leads to a grossly exaggerated and stereotyped portrayal of the French people. Take, for instance, the well-known stereotype of the rude French waiter. This has been featured in countless movies and TV shows, leading many to believe that all French waiters are, well, rude. But let's be honest, who wouldn't get a bit grumpy if they had to serve escargot to tourists all day? Then there's the stereotype of the French as lovers of all things fine and fancy. This might be true for some, but it's certainly not representative of the entire population. Remember, not everyone in France is sipping champagne in a chateau. Some are just enjoying a simple croissant at a local cafe. Of course, we can't forget the portrayal of the French as perpetually on strike. While it's true that the French people are known for their passionate political engagement, this stereotype fails to capture the full picture. It overlooks the fact that these strikes are often driven by a deep commitment to social justice and workers' rights. So why does the media persist in portraying the French in such a stereotypical way? Well, the answer is simple. It's easier. It's easier to rely on clichés and stereotypes than to delve into the complexities of a country's culture and people. It's easier to paint the French as snobby, wine-loving elitists than to explore the true diversity and richness of French society. But here's the catch. These stereotypes, while they may be amusing to some, can contribute to a misunderstanding and even dislike of the French people. They can perpetuate negative biases and prevent us from seeing the French as they truly are. A diverse and vibrant nation with a rich history and culture. And there you have it, the recipe for a national reputation. Just add media, stir in some stereotypes, and voila, instant dislike. Well, folks, we've laughed, we've cried, we've probably offended a few people along the way, but all good things must come to an end. Now, let's take a moment to look back at our whimsical journey through the maze of French stereotypes and misunderstandings. First, we delved into the historical roots of Francophobia. And honestly, who can blame anyone for holding a grudge that's only a couple of centuries old? It's practically yesterday, right? Then we tackled the formidable French language, a linguistic labyrinth that even the most seasoned polyglots find themselves lost in. It's no wonder that bonjour and merci are often our only safe havens in this tongue-twisting terrain. We also had a bit of a chuckle over the classic French stereotypes. Berets, baguettes, and a dash of haughty arrogance. It's like the French were designed in a lab to be the perfect sitcom characters. And let's not forget the French attitude and culture, a blend of nonchalance and passion that seems to confuse and irritate those who aren't used to it. But hey, would we really want them to be just like everyone else? Lastly, we examined the French reputation, a mix of admiration and annoyance that seems to follow them around like a faithful hound. In the grand scheme of things, it's quite absurd to dislike an entire nation based on these factors. It's like disliking all cats because one scratched you, or hating all chocolate because you once had a dodgy truffle. Stereotypes, language barriers, and historical events are just facets of a culture, not the whole picture. The world is a mosaic of diverse cultures, each with their own quirks and idiosyncrasies. Rather than viewing these differences as obstacles, we should embrace them as opportunities to learn, understand, and grow. So next time you find yourself irrationally disliking the French, just remember, they probably dislike you too. Until next time, au revoir.